Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Minnesota State Park Hiking Club Trail Series. Today, we traveled to Kilen Woods State Park in Lakefield, Minnesota. Kilen Woods State Park was established in 1945, but its history goes back much further than that. The region is thought to have been inhabited well over 6,000 years ago. 30 miles to the north, the Jeffers petroglyphs exist as evidence of this regional habitation. More recently, up until the 1850s, it was home to the Dakota people, who hunted bison and elk, as well as foraged for a variety of roots and herbs in the area. But in 1851, the Treaty of Traverse des Sioux was signed, forcing the Dakota people to cede much of southwestern Minnesota to the United States. Kilen was amongst that land. The days of bison and elk are long past, but deer, woodpecker, beavers, and muskrats can still be seen in the park. There's also numerous fish, including walleye, northerns, and catfish, that can be caught in the Des Moines River. There are numerous birds, including woodpeckers, herons, and wood ducks, that can be spied while out on the trails within the park. Smack dab in the middle of glacial, scoured territory, Kilen Woods was covered by the Des Moines Lobe Glacier thousands of years ago. Its retreat created the gentle rolling hills, shallow prairie lakes, and wetlands that surround the area. Many more existed before agricultural development drained and filled in numerous ones. The Des Moines River starts at Lake Chetek, passes through this park on its way to Iowa, and finally into the Mississippi River. Within the park, the river cuts through 100 feet of glacial drift, comprised of sand, rocks, and gravel. The Des Moines River Valley flows through the park and is the purpose of its creation. The park preserves sections of the Des Moines River for visitors to enjoy by hiking, fishing, camping, and other outdoor recreation. Situated on the western bank of the Des Moines River, the hiking isn't limited to the river valley. Another feature of the park is the Prairie Bush Clover Scientific and Natural Area, a rather beautiful hill prairie that is filled with numerous flowers, as well as native prairie grass. It adds a different habitat to the park. The steeper hills help to protect the prairie from development, as they prove too difficult to turn into farmland. The hiking club trail starts by taking you through two small fields separated by a wooded stream that you cross via a small wooden footbridge. The fields both have numerous wildflowers and are a wonderful start to the hike, with a light breeze blowing over them before you enter the woods proper. Immediately following the fields is the campground, which the trail follows the road through. Keep an eye out, as the path looks to almost go through a campsite, when it really kind of just goes around the campsite before heading into the Prairie Hill section of the park. This corner of the park is also that Prairie Bush Clover Scientific and Natural Area, as it preserves a span of native prairie grass that was spared from agricultural development by virtue of its steep and difficult to farm hills. The trail meanders through this area, moving along the edge of the park before moving towards the woods. In the middle of this section is a wooded bench which you can rest and take in the prairie hills and woods below. There is, however, no shade in this section of the trail, but when we hiked it, there was a significant breeze that kept us quite cool. After the bench, the trail starts descending into the valley, looping around the hills before rather steeply descending into the woods by a small creek. A bubbling creek greets you as the descent to the valley floor evens out. After a while, you come across a small wooded bridge. At the time we took the hike, the bridge was slanted and not entirely flat, likely a result of the rather intense flood season we had this year. But it was still sturdy and gave a decent view of the creek below, which had thick undergrowth growing on both sides, with a rocky and pebbly bottom, creating a rocky, gravelly islands at points in the stream that the water flowed through. After the stream, you begin to ascend again as you make your way to the overlook of the Des Moines River. This overlook is rather overgrown, and it's difficult to see much during the summer, but the views must be decent during spring, winter, and fall. After the overlook, you loop back and start heading down along the Des Moines River. The river remains mostly out of sight through thick undergrowth and trees, although there are sections where you can take small detours that bring you right up to the river. Those areas, depending on the recent weather, could be quite muddy. There is one small stream that requires a brief detour to get around that the signs pointed to the right, but it was more easily crossed by going to the left. There was a bridge right there, getting you back to the trail quickly. The trail continues by the river until it runs toward the parking lot and quickly ascends back up to the parking lot's level. My favorite part of this trail was the prairie section. The hilly prairie gave me some real Hobbiton vibes. While I was sitting on the wooden bench looking out over the area, I couldn't help but imagine several hobbit holes in the sides of the hill. It's a wonderful little section that, with the flowers dancing in the breeze and the clouds floating by overhead, really stood out to me as the highlight of the trail. The solitary trees standing out in the prairie against the backdrop just looked mystical and really topped it all off. Thank you for watching, and if you like this addition to the series, like and subscribe. Also, let us know which state park you'd like to see next.